All right. Keynote. Good morning. That work? All right. Yeah. So good morning. My name is Chris Butsch. Thrilled to be here. Before I even begin, I'd like to share a special thank you to somebody, because we're all in this room learning from the top innovators from around the world because of the passion and energy of one man. So Farhat, where did you go? There he is. Let's all give Farhat Damir a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, Farhat, and thank you for having me. So as Farhat may have mentioned, I've traveled the world, I've written a best-selling book, but the number one thing that I'm most proud of, my crowning achievement, is that I've been mistaken for Mark Zuckerberg in 7 different countries. I had people in China come running up to me, "Thanks for making the Facebook." I'm like, I didn't. You know what? You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here today to talk to you about innovation, but specifically about innovation coming from young people. Because I'm thrilled to share that I'm 27 years old, and I think the world has finally found the number one source of raw innovation that we've ever seen. And that is the young people, the generation of Millennials, as we like to call them in America, born between 1980 and 2000. We're technical rebels, we're digital nomads. We have a burning desire to change the world for the better. And there's no reason we can't do it for the companies represented in this room. So my goal today is to teach you some very concrete steps for what you can do to inspire these young people already working for you to innovate and change the world. I'm going to share with you some very concrete ideas of why we think differently as a generation, and the secret steps that some of us and some of our employers take to inspire us to innovate for them, straight from the mouths of the innovators themselves. In addition to that, I want to share with you some examples of what employers did badly to stifle that innovation. Seemingly innocuous steps that they took that completely killed creativity in their offices. Things for us to avoid. So my goal is to leave you with exact ideas for what to say and who to say it to as early as Monday. So, to start off, I'd like to share a little bit more about me, why I'm on this stage, why this is so important to me. Well, back in 2014, when I was 24 years old, I was living what we like to call the American dream. I had a cool car, great friends, loving family, cool apartment with a wraparound balcony. I was making great money right out of college. And yet, just before my 24th birthday, I was diagnosed with acute clinical depression. But the bigger problem was that I learned that antidepressant use in most of our countries has skyrocketed in the past 30 years. In that same period of time, the happiness, especially among young people, was dropping. And that was a serious problem that I wanted to address. And that required me to study 2 areas. First was positive psychology, the science of happiness. The second was to understand psychology of young people so I could bridge the gap. So my journeys took me around the world. I played basketball with Buddhist monks. I high-fived a Chinese millionaire. I was mistaken for Mark Zuckerberg several times. And it eventually resulted in this book. But my quest to teach young people how to be happy didn't just end there. Because again, I see the explosive potential that young people have to innovate and to change the world for the better. So we can leave a better world for our children. And a lot of you in this room have that ability to harness that raw, innovative talent for the workers that are working for you right now. So it's in my best interest, as a millennial happiness expert, it's in my interest to help you inspire that innovation. So that's why I'm here. So let's first talk about what I like to call the innovation generation. What makes young people under 35 think so differently and make them hard to understand? The innovation generation is unique because we're the first generation to grow up with the internet. Now what does that mean? How did that change the chemistry of a young person's mind? Well, Throughout most of human history, people grew up understanding the problems within a certain locus of their community. But if you grow up with CNN and Forbes and Business Insider, in high school, you're growing up with a globalized mindset. You grow up with this hunger to understand not only how other cultures operate, but the problems of other cultures. And when you understand the problems around the world, you develop a hunger, a burning desire to fix those problems. And with that comes creativity. I'd like to zoom all the way down. I've been talking at a 10,000 foot level, so I'd like to come down to one of my favorite examples of a member of the innovation generation. This is my friend Tugay. So Tugay grew up here in Turkey. At age 16, he had an idea. At age 18, he was called one of Turkey's top 5 entrepreneurs. So what happened? Well, Tugay, when he was 16, he wanted to learn a special language. A language that connects innovators across the globe. Tugay wanted to learn how to code. So he went back to his high school and he started asking his teachers, hey, can you teach me how to code? Can you teach me how to code? And the response was, well, Tugay, we don't really teach young people how to code in Turkish high schools. So he got frustrated. But as a member of the innovation generation, he wanted to solve that problem. So he went online, he taught himself English. And then he went online and he taught himself how to code by downloading packs from Microsoft's website. And once he taught himself how to code, he still wasn't done because he hadn't solved the problem. The problem was that nobody at his high school would teach him how to code. So he created what he calls Software Club. And he goes into Software Club is an opportunity for other high schoolers in Turkey to learn how to code from Tugay himself. Tugay has taught 500 young people how to code. He's even emphasized young women to join the club to offset the gender bias in the industry. And again, through Software Club, he's been called one of Turkey's top 5 entrepreneurs. He was also the youngest app developer in Turkey. Now, to me, Tugay is hugely inspirational. He's a rock star. If I had a company like many of you in the room, I'd be dying to hire this kid because he's awesome. So in preparation for this presentation, I asked Tugay, hey, would you find yourself working for a big company one day? And his answer, I love his answer, 2 words. Would you find yourself working for a big company one? Would you find yourself innovating for a big company one day? And he said, yes, mine. It's very cute. But seriously, why not innovate for a large company? Because large companies have more mentors, they have more resources. I mean, wouldn't it be easier to innovate for a big company instead of on your own? And he said, I wouldn't, and here's why. Big companies don't think like startups. By nature, every company, no matter the size, every company one day started as a startup. But somewhere along the line, they stopped thinking like startups. Well, what does that mean, I asked. He said, a company that thinks like a startup is simply one that inspires innovation and then that harvests that innovation. So let's go more into exactly what that means and exactly how to do it. Best of all, let's go into how to do it in a way that costs you nothing but time. So let's talk about what inspires my generation in the first place. We are explosive powder kegs. We're full of fuel for these burning ideas. And what you need to do is light the match. So to find out what really inspires us as a whole, I spoke to a lot of the Forbes 30 under 30. You know, why not? The best innovators in the world. And I asked them the same simple question. What inspired you to innovate? What inspired you to think of that idea? And they all answered in a very similar way. Waits for dermatologists are way too long. Young people don't have access to effective insurance. Young people don't have access to inexpensive flights. What do those all have in common? They're problem statements. The Forbes 30 under 30 have in common that they're all trying to solve a problem. They felt the problem, they understood the problem, and they took the steps to fix it. And that's because young people don't necessarily innovate for paycheck or prestige. They innovate for a purpose. And that doesn't mean that we don't innovate for these things, but our purpose here today is inspire innovation in a very cost-effective way. These two, the two traditional Ps, are the most expensive, the most difficult to implement, and the least cost-effective. This one is the most effective, and it shouldn't cost you more than 10 minutes a week. I'd like to share how. This is my friend Partha. So Partha started out just like me in high school, had some burning ideas for something he wanted to solve, but he didn't really have a muse yet. He didn't really feel the pain of a problem. Until one day, he literally felt the pain of a problem. He was playing basketball, and he broke his leg. Now, he was given crutches. Now, who in this room has actually had crutches before? Yeah, and keep your hand up if you liked them, if they were comfortable. Yeah, everybody just, no, crutches are awful, right? The worst thing about crutches isn't that you're walking slowly. The worst thing about crutches is that it cuts off the circulation to your fingers. Now, when you're like Partha, and you're coding for a living, that was a serious problem. Because all of a sudden, he'd get off his crutches, get to class, and he couldn't type. So Partha did some research. He wanted to find out exactly how old-fashioned crutches are. And it turns out, I thought crutches were a couple hundred years old. Turns out they're actually 5,000 years old. Crutches are older than the pyramids. They could use a little innovating, and that's exactly what he did. Partha worked with his doctors, the exact ones who prescribed him different medications and who gave him the crutches. He said, well, let's design something better. And he literally called it a better walk. I like the name. And the way it works is it puts all the pressure, all the weight of your upper body on your forearms. So you can use more of your upper body muscles to propel your body along. Partha has sold thousands of these crutches. He's been featured on Forbes, on CNN, a true innovator. He's killing it. He's great. And then he met this guy, leader of the free world. I was so excited for him. This picture got about 1,000 likes on Facebook. And I actually picked up Partha from the airport. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that you got to meet Obama. That's so cool. That must have been the highlight of your entire journey, right? And he goes, no, not even close. Because I didn't innovate for the prestige of meeting the president. I didn't innovate to make a lot of sales and make a cut and make a profit. In fact, the most important part of my journey, the most inspirational part of my journey that reminded me of why I did it in the first place was a phone call that I got from Kentucky 2 weeks ago. So Partha gets this phone call from a woman named Cindy. And like him, she had suffered a broken ankle. And she had been prescribed crutches. But Cindy's problem was a bit worse. She felt the pain of crutches more than he did. Now hopefully, we'll get this video to go. No, not me. Nope. Anyway, so what Cindy does is she calls him and she says, well, I heard about your journey and I'm having a serious problem myself. I'm on crutches and they're cutting off circulation to my fingers. When I'll have circulation to my fingers, I can't teach piano. When I can't teach piano, I can't eat. Crutches are literally ruining my life because I live paycheck to paycheck. When Partha heard this story, he overnighted a pair of crutches to her. Within 2 weeks, he got another phone call. She called him back and she said, within 2 days of receiving your crutches, I got circulation back. And I was able to bring my students back into my home. Your crutches gave my life back to me. So, what's so important about that story is that, in this case, Partha, there's not much more prestigious opportunity in the world than to meet President Obama. And yet, he was more inspired by a story of purpose from one of his clients. And that's not an anomaly. You see millennials around the world more inspired by these stories, by how they can solve a problem, rather than how much money they can make or the corner office they can get. So, this is my friend Varun. Another story of purpose. I want to illustrate how a sense of purpose isn't just important for inspiring innovation, it's important for inspiring loyalty to your business. Varun was the rock star at the top Fortune 500 financial firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. That's how I know him. He's my financial advisor. He was killing it, smashing quotas, inspiring the rest of the workforce behind him. So naturally, one day the VP called him into his office with his boss and said, Varun, you're killing it, man. We love you. We're going to promote you early. We're going to give you a 40% bump in pay. And hey, in about a year, I'll give you this office. I'll even let you keep the desk. We're going to give you 5 more vacation days, too. God's sake, man, take some vacation. Go to Monaco. They've got good cocktails. So he hears all this. They're all excited for him. But there's something missing. He feels an emptiness. They'd offered him the American dream on a platter, and he didn't like the taste because there was an ingredient missing. So he calls me, and he goes, they just offered me a promotion, 40% bump in pay, but I think I'm going to quit. Well, why would you do that? You're killing it. I thought you loved working for this company. And he goes, well, they pay me well, but I don't know why I'm there. Sure, I get good money. Sure, I can have a cool office. But how am I supposed to go to work every morning if I don't really know why I'm going to work? Because, and this is one of my favorite things a young person has ever said to me. He said, because there's no price on purpose. Now, Varun actually ended up taking almost an exactly identical position at a smaller company for 40% less pay than he was making before his promotion. And he's way happier. Not only that, but he's innovating for that company in some pretty unique ways. So now I want to go into exactly how that other company, the small one, the underdog, poached a Fortune 500 employee and made him happier for less money. I want to go into the #1 tool for selling your purpose and inspiring innovation. That's absolutely free, and every single person in this room already has it in their toolkit. Now, before I go into that, I talk to a lot of young people at a lot of companies, and I hear a lot of similar stories. I ask a lot of young people, how is your company trying to inspire you? And when they come back with kind of a boring answer, and they say, well, this is what they're trying, but it's not actually working, it's usually one of these methods. Now, if you think of a millennial as an explosive powder keg of innovation and creativity, then these are what I call the rubbing sticks together method for lighting that spark. Totally frustrating and ineffectual. These are things like, oh, we need to inspire innovation? Just make HR do it. Or framing meaningless posters in the bathroom that say things like passion. Or, this is my personal favorite, this is specific, but I hear this one a lot. They hired a very expensive firm to come in and make a video montage of attractive people that don't even work for the company, just typing in slow motion. Welcome to our company, we're innovators. Shockingly, that doesn't work either. And then, my other favorite, filling the website and emails with totally meaningless rhetoric that's totally empty, it doesn't actually mean anything to the young people. So I hear these rubbing sticks together method, and I think, if you want to light this powder keg, use a lighter. What's the lighter method? I love the lighter method because it worked so well on me and my friends at my first job out of college. This is my first CEO, Judy Faulkner of Epic, based in Madison, Wisconsin. Judy is she's one of the wealthiest women in all of America, but most people have never heard of her because she's a total introvert. She's a recluse. In 15 years, she's done 2 interviews with Forbes and Business Insider. And yet, while I was working for her, I was actually ready to quit within 6 months. Prototypical millennial, right? I'm out of here. Because I felt the same way Varun did. I went to work, making good money, had a promotion offer on my desk, but I couldn't convince myself of why I was there in the first place. And that wasn't until I saw Judy speak to her company for the first time. In 10 minutes, I went from, I don't really know why I'm here, to, I'm so excited to come to work tomorrow. What did she do? Well, Judy had an entire stadium built on her company campus, and she had all 9,000 employees file in once a month. So we all filed in, she gave us popcorn and Pepsi, took a seat, and she came out onto the stage. She had two things with her. She comes out, she's got a stool, and she's got a microphone. And she sits down, and for the next hour, she tells us stories. Story time. Story time for millennials. She tells us stories about why we're doing what we do. I want to thank you guys all for being here. Guys, we work for this company. We have all these clients because, well, I got an email this morning that, as we all know, in Joplin, Missouri, the worst tornado in our country's history ripped through and killed hundreds of people and wounded thousands more. Not only that, but it flattened all the medical centers for 100 miles. Now when FEMA showed up and set up emergency medic tents, we were able to email them, the emergency services, the medical records of every single person that got hurt. So the reason we do what we do is because our code saves lives. Another day she comes out, stool, microphone, and she goes, well, this month, we installed in St. Mary's Hospital last month, and already we've saved them $800,000 with our software. With that, they were able to buy an MRI machine and put a lot of that money back into cancer research. That's why we do what we do. Now, you don't necessarily need to save lives to inspire young people. This is Jack Little, CEO of MathWorks. He comes on stage, he does the exact same thing that Judy does. He goes on and he just tells stories. So guys, this month, I'm really excited about this one. I was told by a British recording company that they used our software on the Beatles albums. There are a lot of old live Beatles albums from the 60s and 70s, but the problem with those is that you can't hear the Beatles play over all the girls screaming the whole time. So they used our software to cut out all the screaming girls so that the Beatles sound amazing and live again. That seems like such a small, innocuous example, but here's an example of what one of the young employees at that company at MathWorks told me after that speech. Hugely inspirational. It got me brainstorming in my office and the bus at home about other ways we can help the world. I understand the problem, now I'm brainstorming ways to fix it. Now, I've given a similar talk to this before, and I had a guy come up to me one time back in America, and he goes, well, son, I gotta tell you, I sell chicken gizzards, all right? Ain't nothing inspirational about chicken gizzards. I said, you know what's even less inspirational than chicken gizzards? Telecom. You know what's even less inspirational than telecom? Working in retail for telecom. How do you inspire young people who are quitting in droves to work for you if they're selling cell phones out of a strip mall? Well, Verizon was facing this problem years ago, and they realized that there's not really a great purpose in selling cell phones, so why don't we just make one up out of thin air? So they decided that they're going to pay employees 2 paid hours a month to pack backpacks for underprivileged children. And when the backpacks were available, the kids could come in, the lower income families could come in, the kid could pick out any backpack that he wanted. So all of a sudden, the young employees at Verizon in retail could say, I work here because the harder I work, the more backpacks we pack. The net result, Verizon's retention rate of people under 35 went up by 40%. Let's circle back to my friend Varun. How on earth do you spend 15 minutes with a Fortune 500 top innovator and win him over to your company and pay him 40% less than he's currently making? How the hell did that happen? Funny enough, it actually happened by accident. While he was still contemplating whether he wanted to stay at his old company, he met with a family friend who owned said small firm. He was meeting him for lunch at a steakhouse. So Varun shows up, takes a seat, gets a glass of scotch. You know, he's a banker. Gets a glass of scotch, supposed to meet the guy at noon. Then 12:15 passes. Then 12:30. Then 12:45. No sign of his friend. Finally, the guy comes rushing in about 12:53. Oh, Varun, I'm so sorry I'm late. I can explain. Puts his bag down, takes a seat. He goes, well, this morning, I realized that one of our clients, Rose, she's 93 years old. I realized that she hadn't actually picked up her pension check in 3 months. So I got worried about her. So on the way to lunch to meet you, I drove out to her retirement home to check on her. Turns out she's totally fine, but she just gave up her keys to her car to her granddaughter because she didn't feel safe driving anymore. So she had no way to get to the bank. So I decided to drive her to the bank. We got her check, I drove her back, and I made some calls to the office to make sure that somebody would go pick her up every 3 months to take her to lunch and pick up her check. And Varun finally had a taste of that ingredient that was missing from the American dream, that single ingredient that his old employer failed to offer him. He offered him a sense of purpose. So then Varun looked him in the eyes, and he said the words that so many employers are dying to hear from somebody like Varun. He said, "Do you have any openings?" So my challenge for you for Monday is to think about what problem is it that your company is trying to solve. In what format can you relay that story to your young employees to inspire them? Now again, Judy inspired me in 10 minutes a month. It doesn't take much more than that. But so many companies don't take that extra step to inspire their young people. And if we don't understand the problem, we can't help you solve the problem. So inspire us. Now I want to talk about what I call the death phrase of innovation. And I bring this up because when I talk to so many young people about why they just quit their job, this one phrase keeps coming up. So I wanted to make sure before you guys left today that nobody ever says this phrase ever again. A lot of companies have the attitude that, well, young people, before they get to a certain point, before they're promoted, they should just shut up and do their job. If they've got an idea for how to innovate or create or change something, it probably isn't a very good idea because they've only been here for 6 months. So just be quiet, sit at your desk, get your job done. We'll talk to you in 2 years. Well, young people tend to quit within those 2 years. And I think this is such a destructive mindset because I don't really see a downside to listening to young people. Because if you listen to a young person's ideas over a meeting, over lunch, one of two things will happen. First, it might be a really good idea, so you can develop and implement it with them. Most of the time, it's going to be a terrible idea. But that's okay, because what that young person has just done for you is they've revealed a gap in their knowledge. A gap in their knowledge might be representative of a gap in your training that you can now fill. And not only can you fill that gap, you can also use that as an opportunity to teach that young person what they're missing. And if I know millennials, there's nothing more that we love in the workforce than a mentor and somebody who cares about what we know. So I want to move on to the unspeakable phrase itself, because this is the one reaction that should never, ever happen. And I want to share with you how destructive it can be. The unspeakable phrase. That's just not how we do things around here. Now, to illustrate how destructive these words can be to a young person, I want to introduce you to my friend Sonia. Now, Sonia was a trademark patent attorney, which is good because not a lot of millennials want to go into law, and she's a rock star. So she was working at this very prestigious firm in California that shall not be named. And like everyone else, she was working from 9 to 6 every day, 9 to 6, 9 to 6. Well, for her, she realized that was a problem for what she was trying to accomplish, because if you file a trademark with somebody, that requires a very special level of trust. And she realized that her clients are around the world. She can't build that level of trust by sitting in a cubicle from 9 to 6, 9 to 6. She needed to travel and meet people in other time zones and spend that face-to-face time and build that relationship. That's how she could be the most effective. So she went over to her bosses and she said, guys, look, I understand that I have to be here for certain hours in the day. I'll be here for team meetings. I'll be here when you need me. I'll have my cell phone on 24/7. But I can be more effective if you just give me an opportunity to travel and meet my clients face to face. If you give me a slightly more flexible work schedule, I will double my clients in 2 weeks, I promise. You know how they responded? That's just not how we do things around here. We're going to need you here from 9 to 6. This is my friend Matt. Matt applies special effects makeup. He's got a pretty cool job. He's based in Atlanta, Georgia, and he mostly did stuff for small theatrical productions, small budget movies. But in the late 2000s, Matt caught wind of a pretty fascinating secret. He learned that Atlanta, my hometown, was going to offer tax incentives to Hollywood productions to film there instead. All of a sudden, it was becoming way cheaper for Hollywood to film in Atlanta. The Walking Dead, that's why they started filming in Atlanta. When he realized this, he started thinking about what those production companies would need when they started landing in Atlanta. When they land, they've got a guy who's got a catering business. There's a production guy. There's a guy with trailers. There's a guy with the production studio. But there is no makeup guy. My company could be that makeup guy. Imagine having a monopoly on the Hollywood productions coming to Atlanta. So he gets all excited, amped up, that he's got this news and this idea. He runs to his boss on Monday morning. He goes, boss, guess what I heard? And his boss goes, yeah, I heard that too. He goes, well, what are we waiting for? We need to transition our business a little bit, or I'll even start a new division for you about Hollywood special effects makeup so we can monopolize this thing. What do you say? You know what he said? That's just not how we do things around here. So what do you think happened when Matt and Sonia heard the death phrase? Did they go, oh, shucks, you know what, you're right. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way, and went back to their desk and kept working? Or did these members of the innovation generation say, fine, I'm going to do it on my own? Sonia started Lakhani Law. She's been featured in dozens of magazines, and she's also poached all of her clients away from her old company. Matt started that business, and he monopolized the special effects makeup for the Hollywood productions coming to Atlanta. He personally applied the makeup to Dave Bautista, Zoe Saldana, and Michael Rooker in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a $270 million film. And he's my age. The bottom line is this. Telling somebody this is just not how we do things isn't really an option. There's not much middle ground between listening to an innovator and telling them to just be quiet and wait a few years until their opinion is valid or true or worth listening to. Their opinion, their ideas are always worth listening to. So, once you inspire that level of innovation, those creative ideas from your young people, what's an effective way to collect those? Because it can be a challenge. If you inspire innovation from a stage in front of 200 people, or like Judy, in front of 9,000 people, how do you effectively collect those ideas? Well, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Garrett. Garrett is a serial entrepreneur, and Garrett uses a special 3-question system to inspire and collect innovative ideas. And using this 3 simple question formula, he inspires and collects more innovation in an hour than most CEOs do in a year. This is especially critical for him because as a serial entrepreneur, he's started dozens of companies. So a lot of the time, he only has time to visit each company once or twice a year. But when he does, he just knocks it out of the park. This is the first question he asked my friend Matt. They were all sitting around a meeting, and Matt was working for his company, UGA Heroes, a philanthropic institution based out of University of Georgia. He sits down with everybody around the table. He's got a couple pizzas in the middle. None of these young people have seen him before. But he just looks at them with a smile. And he said, well, what's not working well around here? And what can be improved? Now, not everybody's going to have an innovative idea right off the bat. And a couple people didn't have so great ideas. But my buddy Matt spoke up. And he said, well, I'm glad you asked because I think the problem we have, we're trying to raise as much money for our nonprofit partners per year. But we have way too many events on the calendar. We're so busy and choked up trying to promote this one, and this one, and this one. We've got like 3 events a week. So nobody really knows which one to go to or where to put our focus. So we're not raising any money. So my idea is that we have 1 event per year, and we just blow it out of the park. We turn it into a PR explosion, a celebration. We make something so unique and so interesting that people can't resist showing up and giving us donations. So Garrett goes, well, that was very inspirational, Matt. Thank you for sharing. What ideas do you have? And that's when Matt said, well, my idea is I love boxing. I want to train young people how to box, and then their friends can bet money on them. And the money that's bet on them, they're going to go into the ring at the end of the year, they're going to duke it out, and whichever guy wins, he wins all the money bet on the fight will go to his charity of choice. That way, these young people, these millennials, my friends, we can literally fight for what we believe in. Garrett goes, well, that's a pretty cool idea. We might have to talk to our lawyers about the whole punching kids in the face thing, but let's develop that a little bit more. So Garrett goes with Matt to the Shakespeare Theater in Atlanta, and they know the exact size of a regulation MMA ring. So they go in the middle of this theater here, and they go and they measure the exact measurements of the theater to see if they can fit a regulation ring inside of it. Now Garrett was running out of time. He only had about 2 hours in Atlanta to spend with his company. So after they got lunch, before he flew out, he said, Matt, I think this is a fantastic idea. I'd like to see you develop it. Question number 3, specifically, how can I help you? Because not only is he saying, I value your input, I value your idea, he's also saying, I'm willing to help you, but you need to tell me how I can help you. I'm putting the challenge and the onus on you. But if you impress me, I will mentor you. The net result, Matt created Brawl for a Cause. It's a thriving company. Within the first 6 months, Brawl for a Cause brought in $72,000 for UGA heroes. And Matt actually asked me if I wanted to be a brawler, if I wanted to fight for something I believed in. I was like, Matt, have you seen these risks? I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. I'm a talker. But Garrett, by asking these 3 simple questions, in 2 hours, he brought Brawl for a Cause from just a loose idea floating around in this young innovator's mind to something real and concrete and profitable. But the reality is, most CEOs don't ask these questions. So the young people with this exploding with this raw, innovative talent, these raw ideas, never get a chance to share. So to wrap up, I'd like to just put together some of my takeaways from each of the sections I've covered. The innovation generation, we're no longer company men. The implicit employer-employee loyalty ran out in 2008. We lost trust of large companies. So while we're exploding with innovative ideas, we don't necessarily want to share them as soon as we show up. What inspires us? If we understand the problem that you're trying to solve, and you can share with us your purpose in an effective way, we'll think of ways to help. Number 3, the tool for selling purpose and driving innovation. It's free. Ironically, the most powerful method for selling innovation is the oldest form of entertainment known to our species, but it's very effective. Number 4, the death phrase. Put very simply, it's extremely destructive to a business to shut down the ideas of young people. And lastly, how do you harvest those ideas once you inspire your young people in those 3 simple questions? What's working, but what can be improved? What ideas do you have, and how can I help? So my parting words are this. We are the innovation generation. We're exploding with ideas. We're ready to change the world and create a more positive atmosphere for our children and their children. But if you can inspire us and you can collect our ideas, I promise we'll make a better world starting at your company. So thank you so much for listening. I'm Chris Butsch. I hope you feel inspired.